There's one class in Dungeons and Dragons that always sneaks up behind you, right over your shoulder. And today we're going to be talking about the rogue, but we're not going to be talking about whether it's a good class or not, or whether it's inherently broken, as you might have seen before. Today we're going to continue our series and our top 3 subclasses as we talk about the rogue.
Well, hello there and welcome back to another J&J Tabletop video. My name is Jake and with me as always is Josh, and next to him is his dog Indy. So why don't you say hi to Indy in the comment section as we talk about that rascally rogue sitting behind Josh. I made a video about rogues about a year ago, maybe a little more, talking about how I wanted more paths to sneak attack, and I have a feeling that's going to factor into this video and our choices. But the way we're going to do this is we're going to present the 3 candidates that we've chosen in alphabetical order, and then we're going to discuss why we chose them, what we think makes them so great. Then at the end, we'll reveal the order that we put them in. And then if we have any honorable mentions, which, spoiler alert, we do, we'll mention that as well. So Josh, why don't you tell us what kind of criteria we use when we're determining the best subclasses?
Yeah, so we have 3 categories for our criteria. First will be raw power, which typically has a combat emphasis because how could it not? The next will be whether or not the subclass enhances what the base class does or is looking to do, or rather how it enhances that. And then the last will be the delivery on a fantasy. You know, every subclass is trying to sell you on an idea. Do the features actually match that idea? And is it a fun idea? We will be avoiding overlap. So if there are multiple subclasses that do the same thing or similar kind of things, we're going to take the one that's better and the other one's just going to be cut out completely because that's a waste. Next one will be role playing. We are not going to talk about how you RP a subclass because let's be real, you could RP things however you want to. That'd be a ridiculous criteria. And the last one is multi-classing, kind of same as RP. It'd be really hard to go over a subclass and say how strong it is if you're also combining it with other classes and subclasses. So with all of that in mind, starting at the very beginning of the alphabet with A, why don't you tell us about the raw power of the Arcane Trickster, Jake?
The Arcane Trickster is very powerful, and any subclass that introduces spellcasting to a class that normally doesn't get it is going to have just an entire world open to them that doesn't previously exist. Yes, they have a restriction on spell school choices for some of their spells with the enchantment or illusion, but even still, those spells tend to lend themselves into leaning into what the base class looks to do, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but everything about the spells they get, it's exactly what you would want a rogue with magic to do. It's exactly how a rogue would approach magic. And then also their magical ambush feature, if they're hidden, it's kind of like a sneak attack with magic. They can impose disadvantage on a saving throw if their target of their spell is caught unawares. I just like the word unawares. It feels appropriate as we do a rogue video. But whether you're eventually looking at things that could do things like banishment or something that could incapacitate or take someone out of combat, that not only sets you up to be able to maybe deal sneak attack to them or just remove their actions from a very powerful opponent entirely. You've all of a sudden added this incredibly strong element of control on a scale that they really just never have access to before. So I would love to hear what spells you'd like to use as an Arcane Trickster and some stories that you've been able to do with the Arcane Trickster in the comment section, because anytime you can do this, you're just ramping up the power of a class a lot.
For the enhancements, this is probably not going to come as a surprise to you, viewer at home, if you were listening to what Jake said in the beginning. Versatile, or however you want to say that, versatile trickster. 13th level, you can use your bonus action to distract enemies with your mage hand and give yourself advantage on attack rolls. Which, what else does that do if you have advantage? Well, that gives you a path to sneak attack. All it costs is a bonus action. You don't have to worry about someone else being 5 feet next to it or anything like that. You can do it all by yourself. And that's very significant. So aside from everything that Jake just went over with the spells so working so well with the class in general. Whether it's invisibility or that improved mage hand, I think versatile trickster is number one for me on how it enhances what the rogue does, which of course is sneak attack. But does this deliver on a fantasy?
It absolutely delivers on a fantasy. Not only do they have a feature called Spell Thief, which basically works as like a counter spell kind of thing, except for I stole your knowledge. You can't do that anymore. That's just mind-bogglingly strong, especially for people that might be going up against a caster like Vecna in Eve of Ruin. The other thing is, you get it right away. Is you have Legerdemain, which is an invisible version of Mage Hand. And you could do all sorts of things with it that you can use as a bonus action instead of an action, whether it's picking pockets, disarming traps. It's just so thematic. And even I know they're going to be removing the spell school restrictions when the 2024 update comes in, but even the fact that the schools they chose were illusion and enchantment, that is the fantasy of a magic using rogue. So yeah, I think the delivery on a fantasy here is extremely strong.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's a common theme among the rogue in general, which will bring us to the Phantom. Who is this Phantom?
This is the Phantom Menace, Josh, is it not?
There we go. Yeah, number 2 on our list is the Phantom Rogue. I think this is Tasha's. Small chance it's Xanathar's, but I think it's Tasha's. Either way, later on in 5e, that power creep starts to come up there. And we see that with the raw power. Wails from the Grave, which eventually is made better by Death's Friend. When you hit a creature with your sneak attack, you can then roll half of your sneak attack dice again and just deal that amount of necrotic damage to a creature that's 30 feet away. That alone, very nice. You don't have to make another attack roll. It's just, if you hit, well, now you can hit something else as long as it's within 30 feet of that target you just attacked. 17th level, you have Death's Friend, which lets you deal that damage to both creatures instead of just the one creature. So now it's like, it's enhancing your base attack on the original creature, and it's still doing that extra damage to someone else, which is big. That's really nice to have. Later on, you'll get a feature called Ghost Walk, which you're like this ghostly spectral thing. You gain a fly speed. It's not very big. It's only 10 feet, but that's okay. And then all attacks against you have disadvantage. That is huge. If you have an emphasis on combat as a rogue, that's really big to be able to deal that extra damage and then also have it be twice as difficult to hit you.
Yeah, Ghost Walk cannot be understated because you add this tanky element that's just normally not there. There are rogues that can do well on the front lines, but not quite like the Phantom. When you talk about like enhancing what the rogue generally looks to do, I like the Whispers of the Dead feature because not only is it just incredibly cool, but on a short or long rest, you basically can learn a skill or you gain proficiency in a skill from a dead person. Like how cool is that? Like the rogue is an expert class, so one of the things that they primarily do is they need to be able to do things, know things, accomplish things that are outside of combat, and this lets you get the exact skill that you need when you need it. I mean, that's as bread and butter of a role or as bread and butter of a feature that's going to help fulfill a role that the rogue is known for. Really, that I think is out there.
Immediately ties into the delivery on a fantasy too, right? All of these features just really pull from those spooky and ghostly themes, like what Jake was just talking about, Whispers of the Dead. You run into that scenario where, man, nobody knows anything about Arcana or nobody knows anything about religion, but you're just like, just give me an hour.
Nobody alive
there. Yeah, exactly. Like you're there whispering to the dead and getting your temporary addition to your skill monkey points. And, now you can do it. I think that just all of these features really add up to a character that really feels tied to the beyond or to the other world. It's one of those rare subclasses that just really shines in the fantasy department. So yes, this absolutely delivers to the point of Ghost Walk. You basically become like, mostly ghost,
Been a mostly ghost all day.
If you know what movie that's from. Swashbuckler has some common themes, I think, which is our final choice on the list.
Yes, the Swashbuckler it's a real favorite of mine. It's actually, if you've watched our Nest of the Eldritch Eye playthrough that Josh ran as our precursor to our Eve of Ruin playthrough, I played a Swashbuckler rogue, and it's the only rogue that I actually feel comfortable playing. You can ask me about that in the comment section, or you could watch some of our other videos. But the raw power, I like the fancy footwork feature, and I know that this is more or less a weaker version of the mobile feat. However, until the 2024 rules become official, feats technically still are optional. And if you do use feats, this is sort of a backdoor way to free up a feat choice that you might want to choose something else instead of mobile. And so I love the idea that you can hit something and then you don't have to use your bonus action to disengage. You could use your bonus action to dash, and now they can't get to you. Or just whatever else you need to use your bonus action for. It's just action economy gold. And we love the action economy. We reference it in almost every subclass video. And this is a prime example why. But Josh, there's another level 3 feature that the Swashbuckler gets that I think really does enhance what the base class does.
It's a story you've heard before. You've heard it from me, you've heard it from Jake. But Rakish Audacity, first half is a nice to have. The other one is what we're talking about. It's the really special. The nice to have is you can add your charisma modifier to your initiative rolls, which is really good. It's great to go early, especially as a rogue. But the other part, you gain an additional way to use your sneak attack. If you're one-on-one with a creature, there's no other creatures within 5 feet of it, boom, you could use your sneak attack.
Boom.
That is a game changer. If you want to be more on the front lines, if you want to be a melee build or anything like that, it just really opens up opportunities, opens up doors for you to just go in and do your thing. This is a fun one. And you've played this before. I've never played this before. I've seen Nooch play it long ago.
Ricky played one in our Dragons of Stormwreck Isle.
Yep.
And I got to play Ramon Encarnacion in Nest of the Eldritch Eye, it was a lot of fun. And when it comes to delivering on the fantasy, like, even though I played a rogue, I think I had a line that was something like, and I'm the best swordsman that ever lived. I was level 3, but it was just fun. But like, I kind of felt comfortable saying that, even though like fighters and paladins and barbarians exist, because things like Master Duelist deliver on the fantasy where it's like, oh, I missed. Well, I can re-roll it with advantage. Or Elegant Maneuver, I could use my bonus action to give myself advantage on like an acrobatics check or an athletics check. So I'm going to be doing these like movie style flair dramatic things. I'm going to swing from the chandelier and land and stab my enemy or something like that. And even Panache gives you ways to grab aggro. This is the dramatic rogue, and there's something fun about that when you're playing a fantasy game. And I don't know, I think it really delivers on the fantasy quite well. And personally, I would say this is my favorite rogue subclass.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be your favorite to be the strongest. And that brings us right into our list. Before we actually tell you our 1, 2, and 3, or a 3, 2, and 1 as we normally do it, I want to tell you my favorite rogue. And my favorite rogue, I think, has the best delivery of a fantasy. It's an honorable mention, and this is the Thief. If you want a rogue that excels in combat, it's probably not going to be the Thief. But if you want a rogue because you need someone who can get in somewhere, steal something and get out, you want a burglar, you want someone to go in and get information and not get caught, or if they're found out, they're able to be slippery and escape. The Thief is number 1. So it's hard when we're talking about like power to really give it a high ranking when that's the scenario. Not a lot of combat, hardly any combat focus outside of the base class features.
It also doesn't try to sell you on the combat thing though, and that's why I think it qualifies for your delivery on a fantasy feature. And if you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, having 2 bonus actions every turn is really powerful. But Josh, I think this brings us to our rankings. And so I think starting with number 3, we should start talking about the Swashbuckler. Yes, it's my favorite, but I think Its strength really is in its reliability and its drama. I don't think it stacks up in terms of power as much as the other two, especially when you consider the ceiling or the amount of damage you can deal. You're going to do it more reliably, maybe, than, say, the Phantom would. But I think there's something to be said for being able to blow the doors off of sneak attack.
At number 2, it's Phantom. They don't have their own way to generate sneak attack, but when they use their sneak attack, they're going to be doing damage to multiple creatures, and eventually they're going to be doing damage to multiple creatures and additional damage to the one creature. They're more slippery when it comes to combat. You know, they can take a licking and keep on ticking. It's just good. It's just a very good subclass, but not the best. The best, I think, is your, well, it's not your favorite, but you've been saying this for a long time.
I like magic, so I think it's easy to say that it would be my favorite by putting the Arcane Trickster at number 1. I think that the spell list is the wizard spell list that they choose from. There's so many ways to generate your own sneak attack or infiltrate things to be able to steal magic users' spells eventually. It's just, there's something about the rogue that makes you feel like you're like Batman with their utility belt. Well, it's like, not only do you have that utility belt, but you have a magic utility belt too. And there's something about that. It's just so strong. I want to hear what your list would be if you were going to say, what are your 3 best rogue subclasses? And if you're going to use the criteria that we used, what would you choose? Thank you so much for watching. If you get a chance, check out our Eve of Ruin playthrough. We just started airing those episodes. And thank you very much, folks, and have a good day.